speaking moistly. Keep 2 meters apart, speaking moistly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. It's Christmas week. Welcome, Greg. How are you? Your Christmas plans all finalized? Big family gathering?
Yeah. I not quite, but how are you?
Yeah, same. It's interesting. I live very close to my family, so we're already in each other's bubbles or whatever you want to call it. So the impact
Right.
is minimal for my close family, but I have family that lives in far afield and usually would come and travel, come and visit everybody here. And I have family in Toronto that I haven't seen in a while because Toronto is a terrifying hellscape. And so we were gonna all get together. Like last week, we were planning on getting together, and then yesterday happened, and Doug Ford shook his jowls at us, and he said, "No visits for you." You know,
Lockdown,
yeah,
starting again. We're
yes.
gonna lock it down.
He's like, who's that Star Wars guy? Haas. I can't remember his name. Never mind. Doesn't matter. Carry on.
I was just gonna say, I notice all the time with this lockdown stuff, it's hey, we're gonna talk to the experts,
Hmm.
and this is what we've decided to lock down, and like any amount of like medical information is like not mentioned. Any amount of
Yep.
science is not mentioned. It's just like here's specifically the rules. That's always like kind of what we hear.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the science, nothing to do with any sort of expertise information. It's just like we decided that Costco is open and any smaller retailer is not
And yeah,
based on science.
and
Okay.
well, not even good science really. The if you're a small restaurant and you want to open for in restaurant service, dine-in service, then you will have the riot police after you. And if you're Costco, well, get a hot dog and no problem. Wear a mask. Masks don't do anything.
Yeah. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah. Did you say
Well,
injure or enjoy?
well, they at least mention in Ontario lockdown that you can be at. It says there's going to be ice rinks that are open.
Yeah, but ski hills aren't. This is a
Yeah, that's
list.
weird.
This is a very long list of what's open and what's closed. The closed part is the beginning of the list and is the majority of the list. Indoor and outdoor dining at restaurants and bars has been prohibited. Prohibited. Nightclubs
Prohibited.
Nightclubs and strip clubs are only permitted to open if they operate as food and drink establishment. So your stripping job is now a waitressing stripping job. Carry these drinks to that table and shake it. Male or female?
Yeah, yeah. You're a server now,
Yeah.
but there isn't much dress protocol here, as you know.
Yeah. Well, it would be very strict dress protocol in that you're not supposed to wear any.
Right.
Drive-in or through events are prohibited, but you can go through Tim Hortons or McDonald's drive-through, which seems like a bit of a contradiction to me, right? Like that seems a little odd.
I didn't catch that one. So like the drive-in concerts people are doing is not allowed now either.
Concert venues, theaters, and cinemas may only open for rehearsals, performing a recorded or broadcasted concert or artistic performance. No more than 10 performers are allowed on stage at one time.
Yeah,
Hold on. No, sorry. Carry on.
I was gonna say that's once again pretty obnoxious because this drive-in thing is something that I know musicians and business owners and people and they have purposefully let's work around this with the drive-in thing
Hmm.
and
Churches too.
the fact that they're clamping down on that and saying like yeah how you're trying to work around this lockdown thing, yeah, we don't like that,
Yeah.
so that's not allowed either.
Well, I don't understand how they can just. I mean, again, it's not about the numbers and it's not about the science, but how they're trying to say you can justify keeping restaurants drive in and curbside pickup open, but don't you dare drive to an event that's created to drive to and participate in that. Like that's not allowed. That's illegal. We'll get the riot horses out. Like
Yeah, what's silly about it is you can kind of move you can move the goalposts all you want when talking about this. Like you could say, "Oh, drive-in. Well, people might have to go to the bathroom, or people might do this, or they might do that." Meanwhile, you never talk about Costco. Someone's mask might slip and cough all over the place
Mhm.
at checkout.
Yep.
You know, like, do you
Yep.
really want to play this game? Like,
Yeah.
there's if you want to get into the semantics of any of this, the rules just start to make little more like less and less sense.
Yeah. Well, and that's the truth. The rules don't make any sense. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no science backing up a further lockdown because what the 28-day lockdown we just finished in Toronto worked so well. Let's do another one. Like, what is even the goal of the current lockdown? What are we going for? How many cases per day? I think Toronto is down to like 25 cases a day or something like that. And they're like, you know what we got to do though? Things are terrifying. All of these indicators are really terrifying. So we're going to just lock you down. As you said, there's very little discussion about anything other than the scary models that they've got upcoming. And I mean, they're not believable.
Yeah.
They're not believable.
It's and you know, I would definitely make the argument it's not so much about the actual spread of COVID and how much, you know, how many people have COVID. It's a lot more. This is in conjunction with the fear porn that's being pumped out everywhere. Like the fear porn that you'll watch, that you'll hear on the news or on the radio or TV. It's intense.
Mm-hmm.
It's intense.
Goodness.
I was like watching it the other day, and I'm like, oh my god, like, oh, you know, like when you watch this stuff, it's just like, holy crap. They don't. It's not reassuring at all. It's very much so things are getting worse and more people are sick. And it's so one-sided that, I mean, feels very dishonest, misleading, and quite frankly, criminal because it's like, you know, this gives me images of like Clockwork Orange, you know,
Yes.
It's kind of like being in front of this big screen and having these people in nice suits talk about how the world is burning, the world is ending. COVID is everywhere. It's still out there.
Yeah.
It's still
Asymptomatic spread. But asymptomatic spread has been like soundly proven by proven to not happen by studies, multiple studies, more than one study.
And it's being compared to wartime. It's being compared to wartime.
We're doing it to ourselves.
In terms of death numbers, and it's like I'm looking at the death numbers, and you know, again, anyone who's been, you know, lost to COVID, I'm not trying to be insensitive here, but it's like if you know, our economy is being destroyed, and we're being told that it's like all people are dropping like flies everywhere, and that is just simply not the case. It's not this huge wartime death toll that everyone says it is. Meanwhile, though, in the States, they're basically saying the equivalent of 9/11 is dying every single day.
Fear porn, man. Fear porn. And I just brought up the all-cause mortality. This is on Canada Report, but it's sourced from StatsCan, and you've got the StatsCan link. You can check it out. But in 2016, 177,000 people died in the whole year, and that's of all causes. In 2019, 190,000 people died, and the population increased, so that's normal to have the number of people who died increase. And in 2020 so far, up to, I think this is December 15th or 16th or something like that, it's 186,000. So it seems like you're saying, like, I've had people say, well, people are dying, and you know, we should be really more sensitive to that. And like, what about the entire economy being completely destroyed by the lack of good policy from our provincial and municipal and federal governments? It's appalling what's happening.
Yeah, and something I've heard from somebody else is like, if you're not privy to this being a little like not about a virus, you know, like if you're not realizing what's going on here, like I don't know what it's going to take for people to ever understand or kind of like wake up to it. I mean, that being said, it's I guess in a sense, like, you know, we're people who scour the internet, we're people who look at different information sources, and it's kind of scary to think of somebody who doesn't have that wherewithal to kind of know how to do that, know how to seek out new information, because let's face it, like the mainstream sources are so much more easily accessible than kind of doing your own research. And quite frankly, when you do your own research, most of the algorithms, most of the platforms will point you towards the mainstream narrative anyway. So it's scary to think how few people kind of don't even have the wherewithal to like seek out any valid information that isn't like heavily skewed.
Yeah, you know what's even scarier? I'm banned from. They blocked me. Our Wellington Dufferin Public Health Unit blocked me from their Twitter, and because I was posting like vaccine injury stories and
Right.
stats of like the all-cause mortality, saying like, why are you telling people that they're like you said, why are you sharing this fear porn when the reality of the all-cause mortality is like, where did the cancer deaths go? Did all those people stop dying of cancer and start dying of COVID? That seems really odd. Where did the heart disease deaths go? So that's, I mean, odd, right? Like that's really weird.
Yeah.
But even more scary is I just want to finish this thought is the idea that as this technocratic communism expands, because that's what this is, technocratic communism, I think. As it expands, it's not just from the Twitter that I'll be banned, right? It'll be from the website, and it'll be from the internet, and then it'll be from banking and being able to shop. But they won't even need to stop me from shopping. They'll just need to cut off my money to make me a criminal, right? Like the whole idea is to isolate people like you and I, people who don't consume what the mainstream media want. It's a very, very insidious plan. And I mean, it's working a treat. My goodness.
Yeah, and for the average person, it's so we're basically seeing the phenomena that we've seen earlier in politics in like previous years of climate change and everything, except it's much more pronounced and much scarier. Like for example, with the climate change narrative, I feel like it's a good comparison.
Yep.
Any sort of voice, any sort of viewpoint that is like outside of, well, the world's going to end in 10 years unless we pay the carbon tax. Like any opinion other than that is denounced, it's smeared, it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing the same thing with COVID, where
Yep.
like, you know, if you don't think COVID is super deadly and we need to lock down right now, like any voice of somebody who disagrees with that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yes.
but I was just going to say, for anyone who like truly cares about this actual issue, this mono topic, and how lockdown is going to, you know, cause a lot more problems, people must be kind of like perking their ears up and thinking, this is a little weird how, you know, no nuance is offered on this topic whatsoever. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like, these are the rules and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's very interesting when you look at how Doug Ford went after the Ottawa health person, the what's her name, the Ottawa public health person. I can't remember her name. It's not De Silva. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And he went after the mayor of Ottawa for being. I should bring up the tweet, but apparently in his remarks, I've got it on CanadaReport.co. It's in my list of things to talk about tomorrow, but. It's unbelievable that like Doug Ford kicks anybody out of his party who disagrees with him and votes against him. You won't hear a reason. It's absolutely just get out, done. You're done. You're out of the party. Kariolis, Hillier, other examples too, I'm sure. And anybody who wants to speak out, they point to Kariolis and Hillier and be like, well, you're going to lose any kind of ability to get reelected. But I mean, Doug Ford's taking that anyway. Who's going to vote for these PCs, right? Like nobody's going to vote for these people. But the fact that he's going after the public health and the mayor of Ottawa, I mean, that's telling too, right? Like get in line, don't stand up for your citizens. I keep telling my local council and mayor to stand up for your citizens and to defy Doug Ford and to tell him where to go. And they're not listening, but my goodness, now that I see the reaction of Doug Ford, I'm not surprised they're not listening, but that's where we're at. Like Doug Ford is telling the mayor of Ottawa to get bent. Like, okay, weird, lockdown, screw your businesses, get bent. Like weird. Saying that he's dangerous.
Yeah. I mean, and you hear all these polls, right? And like I would love to believe the things I see on TV, but it's like I don't know if I buy these polls either.
Oh,
but,
the polls? No.
Being able to kind of politically mobilize people is going to become more important than ever, especially leading up to elections, because
if you're not part of
if they can tell us, like, convince people, oh, all these people are dying and all these people are complying, and all these people feel that way or think that way, and it's like I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
Yep.
Every single person I talk to, this is not this like compliant person who's okay with what's going on. They actually hate you, Doug.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and all of his
people I know that don't like you.
All of his tweets are ratioed. It's very interesting. And yeah, you can't. There's no talking sense to him. All right, the police officers. So I read earlier today on Canada Poly the police officer's letter. It says, "I'm a police officer, and I know many other officers support the following message. After the unfortunate events in Calgary, the kid getting arrested for playing hockey, the time for action is now. I have serious concerns over Premier Ford's decision to expand further restrictions that put law enforcement officers in an untenable situation that must be avoided. For 10 months, public officials and bureaucrats have been operating with arbitrary emergency powers that often violate the fundamental freedoms guaranteed by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Everyday Premier Ford, Mayor Tory, and politically appointed bureaucrats are on television, radio, and in the newspaper calling on Ontarians to slowly allow all civil liberties to be taken away. And yeah, we just went into the lockdown. Civil liberties were being removed. I'll just finish the letter here. He says, what happened in Calgary cannot happen again. Never in my life did I think that I would see police officers threatening to taser and arrest kids for playing pond hockey. And essentially he says, are police officers supposed to uphold the Charter when they've taken an oath to... Are police officers not supposed to uphold the Charter when they've taken an oath to uphold it? What do we do, basically? I don't know. I think that Doug Ford, they're all between a rock and a hard place, and I think the whole point is to have us fighting against each other. Remember the PO, the order for the riot gear and the tear gas? I mean, maybe that's why, right? Maybe they knew it was coming. People are not going to be happy, but this is unbelievable.
Well, I mean, anything that's publicly calling out our, public officials and our, politicians is a good thing, because as I point out to people all the time, the news media and the headlines are always like, ooh, like this police officer did this, or this citizen did this, or this small business owner did this. And like, oh my God, like they're not obeying the rules. Can you believe that? And like all these horrible things are happening because of like anti-maskers or something. And it's like, what about the people who imposed the lockdown? What about all the consequences of the lockdown because of the people that made these rules?
Yep.
What about the ruling class? And it's like, it's so sad because it's, the news media is supposed to be asking those questions, but of course they just underline everything that our leaders say now. So it's, it's any kind of criticism that's lofted in the right direction is refreshing, but this needs to continue. There needs to be more of this. There needs to be a lot more pushback. If we expect anything to change. Yeah,
well, he's asking for the chiefs of police to get together and the police associations and Ministry of the Attorney General, Crown attorneys, judges to talk about these lockdowns because, well, I guess that segues nicely into the next one. The court has dismissed Hudson Bay's application for review of the Ontario lockdown rules. And again, I talked about this today. But basically, on Friday, a panel of Ontario's Superior Court judges denied HBC's application for a judicial review of mandated restrictions on non-essential retail in some regions of the province. The decision came after a hearing into the matter Thursday as Canada's oldest retailer attempted to salvage some in-store sales during the all-important holiday shopping season. Now, the interesting thing here is, the court said no to the application for a judicial review. That doesn't mean the judicial review was done on this. That just means they said you can't have the application. Does that mean that there's no basis for this? I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not asking you to be a lawyer and tell me. I'm just saying I'm not exactly sure where this is. I know they can appeal, and maybe this is the process they have to go through. Alberta's had a similar court case. They were asking for an injunction to stop the mask wearing and the lockdowns, but the judge also said that it didn't have enough of an inconvenience to warrant the stay. And again, I don't believe that that's true, but I mean, who am I, right? I'm just some dude in my garage. So, what are you going to do? What do you think? I don't know where this is going to go.
It's hard to say, right? But the fact that all these cases are coming out, all these people are pushing back, it's, we're going to really see what our system is made of. And unfortunately, I foresee how corrupt or at least unreliable our system is in terms of our court justice system. And but I think it's at least moving in the right direction in terms of people taking our actual municipalities and our actual provinces to court to challenge these rules.
Yeah, it's frustrating it's taken so long.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's good that it's happening because with a lot of this fear porn going on, whether you're a left-wing person or a right-wing person, there's different amounts of fear porn that we consume of whoa, what's going to happen? Really truly making a plan and really kind of using the systems that exist to complain properly, to stand up to this properly, and just be something that the public can look to and get behind is very important, because the opposite of that is having kind of short-term thinking and kind of just like, well, I'm just gonna, I don't have a plan, but I'm just angry and I'm afraid. Like, the fear really turns our minds to mush.
Yep.
So it's important to really kind of not give into the fear, kind of be prepared, but also think, what can I meaningfully do
Yeah.
to go ahead.
Yeah, the problem is I don't know that there is anything you can meaningfully do, right? That's the problem. I keep talking, like, if you get influential enough to make a difference, then you get crushed. Mark Friesen, Faith Goldie, Max Bernier, anybody who gets to a level where they can crush you, they crush you. Ezra Levant just got one of his loans called in, right? I don't know. I saw, and there's he's saying, we got to raise $380,000 in the next, however long, because people want their money or something like that. Happened today, I don't know. So they use monetary weapons against you. They use any means necessary if they want to crush you. And so, being the person or organizing anything like that seems like, even if you're well spoken and articulate. I mean, look at my little fight with the Upper Grand District School Board is nothing really, but it's very informative on how you can be dead right about anything, about any topic, and they'll just stonewall you until you go away, right? Like, what are you going to do? What did I get out of that? Nothing other than some awareness and people realizing that the people in charge are maybe not what they think what the public thought they were. But really, my reach is very little, right? Like, did I win? I don't know. But there's no real expectation of winning. I just wanted to raise awareness. But you can't, even if you dot all your I's and cross all your T's and make an impact, and everybody goes, yeah, that's a really well put together, articulate argument, and they don't really have anything to come back with, they'll get you in front of a judge, and the judge will say, you don't have standing. Bye. See you later. Right? Like, so how do you, in a situation like that, how do you faithfully continue to run up that hill when you know you're going to get smacked like a whack-a-mole, right? Like,
well, you
sorry, pessimism overload.
Yeah, I don't know how to respond to that.
Fair enough.
Keeping any amount of hope and keeping your spirits high, though, I just feel is important. I've personally been turning to spirituality in a major way, just to kind of keep good spirits.
Have you watched the Jordan Peterson Bible series, or the Bible?
I've started that one. I haven't gotten through it quite yet.
You got to listen to it in 2 times speed, and then when you hear Jordan Peterson talk at a regular speed, you're like, oh my God, man, pick it up.
Good tip. Good tip.
Because it cuts out the thinking time. It cuts out the thinking time when you're like, Peterson really is thinking when he's talking, right? It's like you're creating the world as you're talking. So he's thinking a lot, and it takes time, and that's usually built into the conversation, so you don't notice it. But when you're listening to something, when you're trying to it's like when you're reading, right? Like, I can zoom through things. I like to zoom through things. Okay, let's talk about Hamilton and the overwhelmed, full COVID-19 testing facility. Do you have this picture? Have you seen this picture?
Yeah, I see it right now.
Randy Hillier says, I love getting images of reality from people. In lockdown Hamilton, there are 2 COVID assessment testing centers where cases are apparently surging. Here's the lineup today. One person. Ha. He looks, yeah. What do you think?
This is, we're people who are always scrutinizing and being critical of our news media, but this is where it's, the bias or the misleading information can really get you angry, can really get you pissed off. And, these headlines that are misleading, that, are making it seem like it's a wartime and like there's just dead and sick people dying everywhere, when in reality there's one guy sitting in line. These headlines are what leads to the hysteria and what leads to the justification of all this tyranny. Yep. So it's like, when you see the reality of it, it's super frustrating, and it's just kind of a more pronounced version of what's already happened in the past with different political topics, where it's skewed in the media, but now it's just so much more pronounced, because it's justifying lockdowns, which is destroying our economy at a rapid rate. It's the consequences are much more grave.
Yeah, and the thing that really sticks out for me is it really prudent to make sick people stand outside and wait? Like, oh, you're sick, eh? COVID-19, got a bit of a sniffle, head hurts, body aches and flushing and, stand outside. We'll get to you.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the conditioning, right? Maybe
I
that's
guess
part of the
so.
conditioning. Getting
Welcome
people
to the
waiting
breadlines.
outside in the cold. Yeah. And actually, though,
No, you're not
actually,
wrong. You're not
I
wrong.
think there's a lot of weird stuff happening like that. And just like we pointed out before, when they're covering up non-essential items, like that feels like a conditioning thing too,
Mhm.
of like, hey, we can do that.
Mhm.
Did you know that?
Yep.
That we can do that. And the same with all these, like, hey, we're gonna have officers who can just like tackle you to the ground. You're gonna have mall cops who are gonna tackle you to the ground if you don't have your mask on, like
Yeah.
all this stuff.
You're not being safe. Get up. Whoa.
Why don't you like the new normal? You don't like the new normal? What's wrong with the new normal? It's totally fine. It's health and science. Beats with the Billy Club. Boom.
Yeah. It's funny because like it seems so like it seemed we're such at a base level that it feels like how kids shows there's no gray area. There's like the bad guy's evilly bad, like bad guy fingers, like Doofenshmirtz, right? Like he's obviously he sings songs about being the bad guy, right? So kids don't miss it, right? And it seems like we're missing the gray. It's like if you don't wear a mask on, if you don't have a mask on, you're in the bad part. You're in the bad section. And if you do have a mask on, you're the good guys, right? And they're it's that base. It's that base level. That's what the programming is. That's what they're blaring at you all the time. At Value Village, I love Value Village. It's like on constant garage. I like garage sales too, but I don't go to them because it's
Value Village. If you're watching, we'll take you on as a sponsor.
Yeah, sponsor the weekly podcast. But I do. But their messaging on their in-store messaging app system is awful. It's like you're listening to like some bubblegum pop from the '60s, and then it breaks in with like, "Hello, everyone. Your safety is most important to us. Make sure you stand 6 feet away, and if you can't wear a mask, come back another day." And blah blah blah. It's like. This is post-apocalyptic hellscape. This is stuff I would read in a graphic novel in the 90s, and I would think, man, this is interesting. How would anybody let it get to this point? And that's where we're at, man.
That is where we're at. I got hope. I got hope that that things will turn around. Only simply because I have to.
Because there's no choice. Yeah.
There's no choice. Yeah, that's it.
Well,
exactly.
I think about this too, and I think about like where is this going? Like let's play this game out. And the thing is, okay, the Second World War, and I think that the Second World War is maybe a good comparable. Maybe it's not a good comparable. I don't know. But people lived through like the Blitz, right, in London, and that must have been like
And they celebrated Christmas.
They were allowed to celebrate Christmas. They were, and they were allowed to make choices for themselves.
During the Blitzkrieg.
Yep.
They celebrated Christmas.
Yeah, well, the bombing of London and right, like that was
Yep.
a very impactful time in history. And I mean, like nobody could guarantee which house was going to get bombed, so you might as well go to your friend's house, right? I guess. But the thing is, like there was finality to it, right? There was news every day. There was something not going to change, but like there were people fighting for their freedom somewhere. There were people fighting for them somewhere. You could see them fighting for freedom somewhere. Is that toxic masculinity, by the way? A lot of those boys were white. I don't know.
Yep. Sure was.
And a lot of them were boys, right? A lot of them were men, and some of them were boys. And so, is that toxic masculinity? They were fighting for their freedom. They were fighting for the right to be free, the right to make their own choices. And then my grandfather fought in the Second World War. And so my point was more that they had an end and they didn't know when it was going to end, but they knew that it was going to end. And they didn't know if they were going to win or lose. But eventually this was not a state to live in for the rest of their lives. But it feels like this is not that. It feels like this is a state that we're supposed to get used to. We're supposed to just, now that we know that you'll lock down and you'll ruin your businesses and you really won't make much of a racket about it. We're just going to keep doubling down. We'll just keep doing this, right? Like, oh well, the hospitals are getting quite full, so it's time to lock down. Yes, you've got to close your businesses. Oh well, the hospitals are full. Don't you see how angry I look on the television, right? Like, man, that's where we're at. How do you do that? There was no end. There was an end to their war, and there doesn't seem to be an end, and there doesn't seem to be anybody fighting for us anywhere for our war. But make no mistake, this is a war, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, and this is an absolute huge shift in in our lifestyle, in our culture, and the thing that people like that's very critical about this time period right now is most people, most normies I talk to, they think it's going to go back to normal still. They think it's going to go back. They think if they just keep waiting and they just keep obeying the rules, then okay, everybody go out now, everybody go back to normal. Like a lot of these people are holding on to this false hope, which I don't know is it's not really. I guess it's sort of portrayed to people in the media. They're like, oh yeah, once you get a vaccine, once you get vaccinated 20 times every other week, then you can go back to normal. But I think that inevitably, and I've faith in this, that more people are going to wake up to this because and we need to be ready. People like me and you need to be ready to kind of catch them when they kind of seek answers online and kind of point them in the right direction, or at least do as much as we can to try and mobilize or at least have a political solution that people can get behind.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. Here's the thing though. In the 1980s, there was the Franklin scandal, and it was a big scandal. Right? It was a big scandal. There was kids found, and you can read books about it. I'm not going to go into it too much, but it was a big scandal. And then from the 1980s to the 2016s, from the Franklin scandal to Pizzagate, there have been people like us who look at these things and go, "Man, the world is a crazy, crazy place." And like, I hope that we're not in 1980. I hope it's not 40 years before we get to see some kind of resolution to this, because we're in a situation, you and me now, and anybody really watching this who understands what's happening, we're in a situation where we're the 9/11 truthers now. Like, there's been an attack, been a thing that's happened, and everybody believes one set of, like, that it was 5 Saudi Arabian guys who hijacked the planes and flew them into the buildings.
Cutters.
Box cutters, the whole deal, and the Pentagon and all that. Was it the Pentagon? Yeah, the Pentagon plane that looked suspiciously like the Beirut explosion or the Lebanon explosion from the other week. It looked a lot like a missile rather than anything else. So you and me, my friend, are the people who are saying Building 7 didn't have anything fall into it, and it just kind of, it didn't commit building, it didn't, right? Like, that's not what happened to Building 7. It didn't Epstein itself. And so we're in a situation now where we live in a very different world than most people, right? Like, we look at things very differently than most people look at things. And you have to come to terms with that for whatever that is. I've been hoping to see a resolution. I was hoping Trump was going to do it. And well, it's getting late in the day for him. And not totally, but we're less than a month now, right? January 20th, it's the 22nd. Yeah, so he's still got time to do something. But the time to do something, and I was hoping for, like you said, a political way out of this, because a political way out of this is to have the U.S. Supreme Court uphold free speech, the U.S. Supreme Court, because they're the shining beacon of freedom, right? And yes, right. The United Kingdom. Also, historically, Magna Carta, all of those rights that were hard fought by the titans of history, really, in our Western world, they're all on the table right now, right? And if Trump goes away on January 20th, if Trump's not the president on January 20th, Justin Trudeau and whoever's in charge of Britain, because I don't know if it's going to be Boris Johnson, and Joe Biden are going to have a heck of a lot of fun pillaging the rest of what's left of this country, because I don't see a way out of it. And there's no political way out of it if that happens. If Biden's in, goodbye.
Sure, but I guess what I mean in terms of like political solutions, maybe I mean more kind of like grouping together like-minded people, because it doesn't have to necessarily be like a political party or something like that. But if people can kind of band together in a meaningful way, like meeting somewhere or just kind of being on the same page and united in some way, it doesn't need to necessarily manifest politically, but like that sort of like unity that is trying to be subverted constantly by the media.
It doesn't work in communism, man. That unity doesn't work in communism. I'll tell you this: they won't let that happen. They won't let that happen now either.
Yeah, but Mark, something that I've been thinking a lot about is how oh, well, communism happened like this before, and this happened like that before, and it's like, yeah, well, history hasn't happened yet here. Mm-hmm. And it's a different landscape now, and you could say, yeah, the propaganda is even more effective than it used to be, but the tools we have to fight back are also more sophisticated than ever as well.
Yeah.
So to kind of assume, oh well, this, Rome fell before, so now this is just going to fall the exact same way. It's like, well, it hasn't.
You make
it
a good
hasn't happened
argument.
yet. It hasn't happened yet. So it hasn't happened yet.
Are
So
you?
just kind of assume, I'm just trying to be hopeful here.
I know. I was gonna say, are you?
And then Mark's like, well, actually, no, Greg. There is no,
Crush.
hide under your bed, you idiot.
I was gonna say, are you trying to tell me to trust the models? Do you want me to trust the models?
Well, yeah, don't trust anything too much. That's for sure.
No. And I'm not hopeless. I'm not hopeless. Like, you're right. This is very different than 1940s, 1930s, 1940s Germany. There was a long lead up to 1940s Germany. There was a long lead up to that hell. Humans are really good at creating hell for themselves, and then they're good at saying, well, hold on a second, this isn't so great, and then moving out of it. I'm just worried that the part about saying, well, hold on a second, this isn't so great, and then moving out of it's going to be problematic. We're really good at making a hellish landscape out of our legal frameworks and out of our the places that we have to live. And there've been lots of times where humans have done that. We could point to lots of times where Rome fell, but you can look at Rome now and it's a nice place to live. And there were people who lived there all through the fall, and there were people who lived there through the rebuilding. And it's still, well, there are people who live there anyway, right? And they can get groceries and they can live. And is that enough? I don't know. I guess it'll have to be, right? Like, there's no promises in this world, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I know firsthand. I've started to talk to more and more people who are in business and who have, they have a lot of capital. They have a lot of like industrial power, so to speak, and they're very kind of, they're very concerned with what's going on here. And there's a lot of like larger business people who are seeing what's going on, and to think that they're just all going to roll over. I don't think that's accurate. I think that they're going to be incentivized to roll over, but I think I think it's going to be a very interesting decade. I can guarantee that.
Yeah, 2020 is kicking off like this. That's absolutely an accurate prediction. All right, I think we can leave it there. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Indeed.
Enjoy the moment with your families and loved ones, whatever you can. Just like, enjoy your whatever meal you can get your hands on, and yeah,
absolutely. And yeah, from us here at Speaking Moistly to everyone out there, have a Merry Christmas. And when you can, hug your families close. And I don't know, don't do a Zoom call. Go see your mom. Go see your dad. Call them too. That's nice. All right. Prime Minister will play us out. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be around hopefully next week. You want to do this next week?
Yeah, I could be. I might be.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
We'll see.
Have a wonderful, wonderful week.
Speaking moistly, keep 2 meters apart. Speaking moistly.